The year 3000. There are so many futuristic advancements to be explored in the city of New York. Intergalactic travel, longer lifespans, the ability to keep the heads of celebrities alive in jars. But has the human race really gotten any smarter on average? Or any alien, mutant, or hybrid race for that matter? Hi, I'm Caleb from Wicked Binge, and today we'll be looking at the intelligence of Futurama characters while we rank them from the dumbest to the most brilliant. We'll be breaking the characters into one of three categories: the brilliant, the average, and the stupid. Normally, for our dumb to brilliant format, we start with the dumb and work our way up to brilliant. But in this show, where even our geniuses can be idiots, we have decided to work our way up to the dumbest character. An arguably more prestigious title for this show. So grab yourself a bowl of bachelor chow and let's dive right in. First up are the brilliant. These are the characters that, despite their shortcomings, show a consistent level of intellectual prowess or have done very well for themselves in a hostile future. Taking home the gold medal for intelligence is none other than our favorite Planet Express pet, Nibbler. We just want to preface this by saying that Nibbler may actually be the dumbest Nibblonian on his home planet. After all, he gets drunk on the one day of his important mission and loses the company car. But as the one reoccurring character from this super intelligent species of adorable ancient aliens, we feel like it's well earned. Plus, he does succeed in his mission. He gets Fry to the future. He befriends him and Leela so he can track the progress of the mission. He can speak in multiple languages, decode prophecies, and drive the world's cutest spaceship. He even survives being flushed down the toilet by Bender. But good on Schmookums for coming out on top, despite once winning a Dumbest Pet in Show prize, against Zoidberg no less. Good news, everyone! Taking home the silver medal of brilliance is Professor Hubert Farnsworth. You may have expected to see him ranked as most brilliant, and it was a close thing. While he may be a more impressive member of his species, humanity just isn't ready to compete with immortality and super intelligence. Not even in the year 3000. That being said, Hubert is an impressive Earthican. He boasts a high IQ, good education, and is a talented inventor. Some of his inventions may be questionable, such as the smelloscope, but look at the intergalactic spaceship he was able to build with different lengths of wire. This senile character may be described sometimes as a doddering old fool, other times as a maniac. But we here at Wicked Binge believe that genius and madness are two sides of the same coin. Following him and taking the bronze medal of brilliance is also Hubert Farnsworth, or rather his clone, Cubert Farnsworth. We almost ranked the pair together because they are both technically and legally the same person. Ultimately, we decided that Cubert, who tries so hard to differentiate himself from the professor, deserves his own slot. His youth and clarity make him brighter in many regards and more focused. He has Hubert's intelligence and none of his cloudiness. With a good mind for math and scheming, he shows quite a bit of promise. We still ranked him lower, however, because it has been proven that his strict adherence to the laws of science proved to be limiting. Plus, he can be a little naive, as was shown with the founding of Awesome Express. Following him are the Harlem Globetrotters. Specifically, we're thinking of Ethan Bubblegum Tate, but the Globetrotters work as a team. Not only are they some of Earth's most feared rivals on the basketball court, but they also know how to solve complex mathematical equations to save the rest of the world. Now that's pretty funky. On the other side of the moral spectrum is Mom, the world's most huggable industrialist. If only she could use some of her business savvy for good. Unfortunately, she doesn't even like her employees using their skills for good. This is proven in many a flashback where we can see how she can turn even the most harmless invention into a piece of the puzzle for her ultimate goal of world domination. She hatches many schemes over the run of the show, and not all of them fall through. Her iPhones are still a huge success, and she's one of the richest people on any planet. We have no doubt that she's going to stay that way. After her is Wernstrom. While we believe he may actually have a higher IQ than Mom, he is worse at putting it into practice. He often bets against people, making enemies in his field and sometimes endangering his own life in the process. He scammed the mayor out of a tenure position in a world-threatening crisis only to realize that he too would be destroyed if he was right about being doomed. Next is Leonardo da Vinci. Like Nibbler, he comes from a planet of super intelligent beings. Unlike Nibbler, we know definitely that he is the dumbest one there. He can't even use rendering software. It still makes him very impressive by our human standards, but he does choose to use what wits he has for evil. Easily thwartable evil that is only achieved with substantial help. By Fry of all people. But speaking of evil, we move to our next pick, the Robot Devil. For someone who is only supposed to have domain over religious robots, the Robot Devil certainly finds his way into a lot of schemes around New York. He seems to have those glorious robot hands of his in many service dealings. And we can't blame him. There isn't much to do in Robot Hell except for practicing the never-ending torturous songs. We are ranking him in this tier because some of his plans are truly brilliant. When he accidentally swaps hands with Fry, for instance, he comes up with a complex and dramatic plan that properly punishes the people he was annoyed with. We are ranking him towards the bottom of the tier since those plans could easily be described as convoluted. His plan to let Bender haunt Fry to death, for instance, proved to be a big failure. And historically, he's best at keeping the people in Robot Hell whom he doesn't exactly want around. He seems to be making a Robot Hell mostly for himself, whether he intends to or not. Up next is Leela's mom. Mostly, we're going to be ranking parents together, but we felt an exception had to be made for Leela's mother. We're not saying we don't approve of her relationship with her husband, but we do think that she's smarter than him. By a lot. When the two of them plot to send their daughter to the surface to be passed off as an alien, the plan is only made possible by her degree in exolinguistics. And she has the skills needed to find practical application in her studies as well. During the brief time she and Morris are separated, she is able to do some translation work for Zap Brannigan, including some very important political negotiations. It shows that not only does she have a brain, but she is more adaptable than many of her other fellow mutants who make no attempt to ever build a life for themselves outside the sewer once they are allowed free reign. Wrapping up this first tier are the Wongs. Speaking of parents, Amy's mother and father are, in their own fashion, brilliant. They come from money. The Wong family has been rich for generations, since their ancestors own an entire hemisphere of Mars. But the Wongs are also smart enough to continue growing that capital. Even if they didn't have to work for it, they do show more than once that they are able to make prudent financial decisions. While we see their intelligence more in their continued success than in their actions, they are safe from being lower on this list by their interest in academia. They have donated so much money to Mars University that Amy's sorority is Kappa Kappa Wong after all. It's time now for our second tier, the average. These are the characters whose intellectual accomplishments are balanced out by an impressive amount of idiotic deeds. First up is Amy Wong. She is appearing on this list just after her parents and only a hair away from making the brilliant tier. It was hard to place Amy because she does have fleeting moments of absolute genius. Her doctorate thesis was so well researched and effective that it was stolen as a part of a plan to destroy Earth. She is able to use that same research to free everyone and save the planet. In that same episode, however, we see the side of her that keeps her from being any higher up on the list. She is years late presenting her thesis because the professor has been tricking her into continuing to work for free as an intern at Planet Express.
Nonsense! You've been my grad student for 12 years!
She's also late to the meeting when she finally has her chance to shine because she was out drinking the night before to relax. And honestly, this is indicative of the Amy we most often see on the show. She's a bit of a spoiled party girl a majority of the time. She's a klutz, she can be ditzy, and she's quick to judge others for skills she herself also doesn't possess. It really is a shame we don't get to see more of this intelligence from her now that we know she has it. Following her is her teacher's rival, Dr. Banjo. We don't want to get political here or insult the beliefs of any fellow Earthicans. Dr. Banjo is entitled to have his creationist beliefs free of judgment, especially since he ends up being proven partially right, at least in theory. That being said, his lack of open-mindedness in the face of evidence makes him a poor scientist. A scientist still, but not one that we would trust as far as Farnsworth or even Wernstrom. Next up is La Barbara. Hermes is very, very lucky with his wife LaBarbara. And we aren't just talking about how she chooses him over her previous husband, Barbados Slim. She's a beautiful and intelligent woman. She often has the right answer when Hermes finds himself in a difficult situation at work. Plus, she makes some excellent curry goat, we hear. Just behind her is her husband, Hermes. The paper-pushing, red tape-loving bureaucrats of the 31st century may torture themselves with needless cycles of unnecessary paperwork. But that general complaint aside, Hermes is good at what he does. Well, for the most part. He isn't always the best person. He lets his grudges interfere with his work decisions, especially when it comes to his hatred of Zoidberg.
Obviously, someone round here been wasting a whole heap of juice. Probably you.
But even when it comes to firing day, he does his best to make objective decisions on behalf of the professor's interests for Planet Express. This means that he isn't afraid to fire even himself. While he can let himself get blinded with paperwork from time to time, Hermes usually keeps sight of what's important and which things in life make him happy. Following him is his one-eyed co-worker, Turanga Leela. Leela gets tongue-tied. When she's surprised or emotional, we have seen her spit up some of the show's least eloquent phrases.
If only I could get back that time I spent watching Tron Legacy.
And that's really saying something considering some of her upcoming entries. Despite all of that, we think she's smarter than she's sometimes able to convey. She takes good precautions on the job, which she takes seriously. She gets involved in the community and fights for things she believes in. Unlike the more impulsive characters, she has a code of conduct that she holds herself to and well thought out reasons behind her decisions. She also engages in hobbies that encourage her self-improvement, meaning that despite being one of the most competent characters on the show, she is still trying to learn and grow. Following her is Kif. Kif seems to have a good enough head on his shoulders. He has risen to second in command in the Democratic Order of Planets. He's also the one who has to correct the idiotic notions of his commander.
You already imprisoned her under Directive B10.81.
We think Kif shows some of the most personal growth throughout the show, especially since he's able to form a lasting connection with his dream girl, Amy. What drags him down even this far on the list is his lack of social awareness. It gets in his own way and stops him from achieving more. His uncertainty and unwillingness to read people keep him stuck working under the one man he probably hates the most. After that is Hermes and LaBarbara's son, Dwight. He shows promise. Though we know from context he doesn't have the same incredibly high IQ as his best friend Cubert, both children show promise in the fields of their fathers. Dwight already wants to learn about investing and is just as good with accounting as Hermes. Arguably, he's better at accounting, just naive. If he learns to listen to his elders, he's going to grow into an adult worthy of a higher ranking. Following him is the company chef, Bender Bending Rodriguez. It was actually quite difficult to place Bender. Being such a prominent character in the show, Bender sometimes lacks continuity. It left us to wonder how much knowledge he lacks versus how much knowledge he chooses to ignore. We know that he isn't a good calculator. He can't do mathematical calculations required to prove he's a robot. He's easily confused by how humans function and sometimes even by their mechanically styled dance moves. But we think that he possesses average intelligence. It could be above average, as we have seen he can be effective when he chooses to apply himself to do something. He shows special skills in lying, thievery, and of course, bending. His ability to scheme and improv does not erase how many stupid situations he is able to create for himself, however, and that's why we feel we simply cannot put him any higher on this list. Next we have Barbados Slim. He must have been doing something wrong to lose LaBarbara, and we think it may have had something to do with his ego. It was certainly not anything to do with his body. It seems as though this is one limboing champion who just doesn't have much going on in the way of thought, though he has done well enough for himself that we have trouble calling him an idiot outright. Speaking of successful men, we move now to Fishy Joe. This fast food mogul is probably one of the most successful people in the year 3000 after Mom. There are things he's bad at, sure. Sales pitches, subtlety, vetting out food sources for his restaurants. He is also brazen enough to admit that eating his new signature dish, Poplars, is wrong on national television. This shows that he may have just gotten too successful for his own good. Or on a more sinister note, that no one cares about morality as much as money in the future. Dark. Following him is the equally corrupt but less successful Abner Doubledeal. This reoccurring character is a hustler. We think that he probably continues the hustle only because he enjoys doing it, not because he needs to. After all, he has had more than one very successful scheme throughout the course of the show. Not all of his plans go perfectly, but the ones that make it big are rather impressive. All in all, he's an average, sort of sleazy businessman. After him is Scruffy, the janitor. Perhaps it's just the fact he's quiet that makes him seem so wise, but there's an unapologetic honesty in Scruffy that we can't help but appreciate. He knows who he is, the janitor, he knows what he fixes, boilers and turlets. Most importantly, he knows what he likes, porn and pink $300 hairdos apparently. But at the end of the day, we just have to appreciate him for who he is. And if you don't, that's a paddlin'. Now we move on to our favorite news anchors, Morbo and Linda. While they're both respected local celebrities in New York, we think Morbo and Linda may be slightly less than professional. We know from the city's brief alcohol shortage that Linda is a high-functioning alcoholic who has, at times, been clueless. Morbo, meanwhile, is an alien who has been less than subtle on his on-air threats to crush humanity. They make for interesting TV personalities, but we can't exactly say they're the smartest. Next up are Lure and Nda from Planet Omnicron Percy 8. We get to see more of Lure than his wife, but they make such a good pair that we decided they have to go together. Lure is better at interacting with humans, but his wife is more motivated in conquering them and furthering her husband's political agenda. As a pair, they are usually able to see their collective needs met. While they never get all the way to Earth domination, they are able to see their young avenged and their television habit sated. On the topic of television, our next pick is the star of all my circuits, Calculon. Considering that he was created only as a robot arm in a manufacturing plant, Calculon has come a long way. There's little denying that he's a popular actor and a successful robot in a human's world. He can even, at times, be quite good at his craft. Of course, he also has no sense of self-awareness. This is a common fault on the show and is played to perfect comedic effect, but in Calculon's case, it also leads him easily astray. He falls into schemes and plots easier because he can't fathom that not everyone loves him as much as he loves himself. Moving on, we have Fry's on-again, off-again girlfriend, Michelle. She gives up on her life in the 21st century and freezes herself despite feeling at home in her time period. She thinks that after a few setbacks in her life, there's no way to move forward but cryogenics. It seems like a poor decision, and we quickly learn that Michelle isn't cut out for life in the year 3000. But even in a world where she isn't dependent on her boyfriend Fry, she takes him for granted, just waiting for something better to come along. These all sound like moral observations, but we also feel like her failure to acknowledge how hypocritical she is makes her less than brilliant. Coupled with the absolute dependence she has on others, she also earns her rank near the bottom. Following up is Flexo. He's Bender's good twin for lack of a better comparison. We ranked him a lot lower than Bender, and it's for one main reason. He falls for Bender's antics. So does everyone to some degree, but considering they are both bending units, you would think Flexo of all people would know what he's up against. He always gets the short end of the grinder when it comes to the interactions between the pair. And rounding out the tier, we have Layla's dad. Morris does just fine for a mutant. It's mostly in comparison to his wife that he looks less smart. We've already spoken a bit about how intelligent she is and why they weren't ranked together. But the fact that Morris doesn't really understand what his wife does and doesn't make the effort to try until after she leaves him just goes to really illustrate that divide in wits. Up last, we have the dumb. These are the characters whose intelligence comes into serious question on a regular basis, and for good reason. First up is celebrity chef Elzar. While he may be successful, we have to question exactly how successful he is. For one thing, he works multiple jobs. We respect the hustle, but we also have to question his money management skills and business acumen since he doesn't seem to be thrilled about most of the work he does. And he should have plenty of money without moonlighting at Cavern on the Greens. The big red flag for us is that he hires Bender and allows Bender in his restaurant and gets scammed by Bender multiple times. Seriously, he should know better than to let his stalker anywhere near him. Fool him once, right? Next up is Dr. John Zoidberg. He is at an unfair disadvantage. After all, we only ever get to see him treating humans when he is supposed to be an alien doctor. But since he works almost exclusively with humans and never learns anything about that, he is at least a little accountable. It's not only his professional failings that bring him down to this level either, it's his spending habits. He works for virtually nothing at Planet Express, never sticking up for himself. And when it comes to buying things, he doesn't get food or a shelter, other than the dumpster behind the building. Instead, he likes to buy 8 of, well, whatever someone tells him is a deal, coupled with penny slots. He may get a pass with Santa Claus for being a good boy, but we can't say that he's smart. Moving back over 1,000 years, we have the Fry family. When our protagonist Philip J. Fry freezes himself into the future, he leaves behind 3 members of the Fry family. We're looking now at his mother, father, and brother, who we are all grouping together as roughly the same level of intelligence. His parents both have obsessions that keep them from living in the moment. It contributes to a sort of absent-mindedness that probably impacted both of their kids growing up. For Fry's mother, it was sports. She almost always has a game on, and even the family time that they have together seems to be centered around that. For his father, the obsession is about doomsday prepping. He was into the survivalist aspect before the term entered general rotation, but there's little denying that's what he was up to. We see him obsessed with prepping the family for Y2K and also a nuclear war that never happens in his time. The smartest member of the family may be Yancey, but it's very hard to tell. We see Yancey mostly through Fry's flashbacks, and they tend to focus on the boy's childhood where Yancey is a dumb kid. It seems like he may grow up to have things figured out. He settles down with a beautiful wife and raises a brilliant boy whom he names for his missing brother. But our most concrete ideals of Yancey are still of him trying to steal things from Fry and living in the shadow of his younger brother. While they may display more intelligence on average than the youngest brother, who is still coming up, we are starting to understand where Phil gets some of his smarts from, or lack thereof. We move back to the year 3000 to talk about Judge Whitey. Although Judge Whitey is a reoccurring character on Futurama, this could basically encompass all the show's judges. The satire has never been stronger in this series than in the courtroom, and it shows with the countless dumb decisions that are made in court. And speaking of court, Roberto is up next on our list. This robot was clearly not built with a head full of wires, if you catch our drift. Just to clarify, we're not taking into account the fact that Roberto is crazy. His violent streak is just a part of his programming, as is the inclination for crime. What we are looking at, however, is the way he commits those crimes. Specifically, we would like to cite the bank that he robs not once, not twice, but 3 times until he's caught. His blatant interference with the justice system is also something that wasn't well thought out, though he gets a pass on that one simply because the court system is also dumb. Following him are Hattie McDougal and Edna. Both of these women are reoccurring characters who seem to exist for the sole purpose of getting into trouble. Whether it's being murdered or being scammed on Valentine's Day by Bender, things just never go right for these two, and we sort of blame them. Next is the Moon Farmer. In a stroke of brilliant writing and not so brilliant characters, we are introduced to the Moon Farmer. He could best be described as a lunar redneck. His farm only functions because it's a temperature-controlled dome with an oxygen-based private atmosphere. He has adopted 3 robot daughters, and yet he seems hypocritically perplexed by modern science. He also, like so many other characters on the list, makes the mistake of trusting Bender. While he gives fair warning about not touching his beautiful robot daughters, he finds himself ultimately unable to follow through on the promise to hunt him down after, and nearly suffocates when he removes his helmet out of range. We move now to another shared slot with Mom's 3 sons, Walt, Larry, and Ignar. Though we could have ranked all 3 of them individually, they do all have distinct levels of intelligence. We felt that since they work as a team, we should rank them as a team. While their schemes are usually successful, they're also incredibly idiotic. They will often take orders from their mother to get something easy done and expend way too much effort in achieving it. A good example of this is when they are ordered to get Fry's secret PIN number, which he has been very open with. they are able to pull off an elaborate scheme where they trick Fry into thinking he's back in the 21st century.
You're in the good old year 2000.
It looks terrible. The set is falling apart and they don't bother researching the place they're trying to imitate. They hire Pamela Anderson's head to pretend to be back in the year 2000, but she can't keep the year straight, and it's obvious her head is still in a jar. They struggle with their lines and the whole thing is an absolute failure. Except for that it works, as Fry is still super open about his PIN number. They also go behind their mother's back to stop her taking over the world with robots. Instead of just talking to her using one of the many opportunities they had to sabotage this scheme on their own, they involve the Planet Express crew. Their plan hangs on Professor Farnsworth, who can barely remember what they're doing or why. As a group, they seem to want to follow in their mother's footsteps for schemes, but they don't have the talent for it as she does, or the wits to realize when one of them, Ignor, is bringing the rest of them down. Hell, they can't even stay on top of a game leaderboard without crying to their mother for help. Following them is Malfunctioning Eddie, another robot that we don't entirely blame. He was, after all, built with a propensity to malfunction. He does show promise, especially as he briefly owns his own car company. We question whether or not that's a good idea. It appears like it wasn't, since he ultimately gets moved into a facility for insane robots. And while he does work on his struggle, we see that there are plenty of relapses after that. The explosions may not be his fault, but we do have to wonder why he keeps putting himself in situations where he knows he's likely to explode. Taking home the bronze medal of idiocy is Hyper Chicken, the lawyer. He may just be a simple country chicken, but well, that's about it. He defends various members of Planet Express on multiple occasions. He puts on a show of being simple, like it's building to something, but it seldom is. As a matter of fact, he winds up in jail himself with no idea how to get himself out or the law that he practices. He too knows that he's hopeless. After all, he is once able to plead insanity for his clients just on the grounds that they hired him. Now that is pretty damn impressive. With this silver medal of idiocy, we finally come around to Philip J. Fry. He made it almost all the way to dumbest character, but then he proved us. As he himself once said, when you look this good, you don't have to know anything.
Hey, when you look this good, you don't have to know anything.
And it may very well be true, since Fry doesn't seem to have to know much to navigate his life in the 31st century. He gets by largely through luck, friends, and the ability to accept any situation without question. It's one time where not thinking things through actually works to his benefit. It's well established that education has improved during the 1,000 years that Fry was frozen. Having a high school education from the 21st century means virtually nothing in the 31st. This puts him at a distinct disadvantage with his peers. You know what else puts him at a distinct disadvantage? The fact that he is his own grandfather. It messes up his brainwaves and makes it harder for him to function. Even simple tasks can be hard for him. He can forget about injuries, get pushed around, and the entire premise of the show hinges on the fact that he allows himself to be tricked into becoming a delivery boy against his wishes. But at least Fry is self-aware, to a degree. He knows he's not the brightest and even takes pride in it. He tries to improve himself, but as we learned when he had the parasites and chose to get rid of them, he doesn't want to take any shortcuts to get there. These are the few things that save him from being the dumbest character on the show. Speaking of which, the gold medal of idiocy goes to Captain Zap Brannigan. This is yet another prestigious honor for his decorated career as an admired captain. Our only question is, how does he have that career in the first place? We understand that Zap might not be able to register how stupid he is, but the fact that the world doesn't see that is amazing. Because to us as onlookers, it is quite obvious. The only thing we can think of is that he gets to stay in a position of power because he stumbles his way through to getting results. There's no way that Dupe would continue working with him if they saw, as we do, how he gets those results. Whereas Fry has no delta brainwaves and grew up in a less educated time, Zap has every advantage and opportunity at his disposal and is still as dumb as a brick. He's stupid enough that he doesn't even realize how ridiculous he is. He mispronounces common words like champagne, he wins his battles by getting all of his men killed, he thinks that he's irresistible to women despite the fact that he's only ever been with one and she openly despises him, at least that was the case at the beginning of the show. He mixes some very confusing metaphors to describe his own prowess with strategy. While it shows an utter lack of understanding or any game whatsoever, it does weirdly sum up who he is as a captain and as a person. If it were not for Lieutenant Kif Kroker, we doubt that Zap would make it more than a day. We unfortunately know that he wouldn't be shaved at the very least, since that's something he's incapable of doing himself. And that has been it. All the cast of Futurama ranked from dumb to brilliant, or in this case, brilliant to dumb. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to like and subscribe. While you're down there, leave us a comment and let us know what video topics you'd like to see next. And as always, stay wicked.